Hey guys and gals, Never here from Drakewing Game, and a 70 mile Twitter, the Gaming Dragon. Today I'm coming back at you with a Let's Play episode of Beasts of the Thorns. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right back in, shall we? Alarm chain, you were up, and let's go. Darwin and Bjorn left in the rain. One of the members replied hesitantly to Ostrom. Ostrom fell silent. He opened all the boxes, revealing an array of translucent slices of sashimi sushi prepared by professional chefs, a traditional sushi delicacy. Eat up. Speaking, he tossed a piece of Toro's sushi into his mouth and chewed thoughtfully. The other members also began to eat. Ostrom spared no expense in treating his pack of wolves, but he hadn't anticipated that Bjorn and Darwin would leave early in the rain, so there might have been an excess of food. After a while, Amor also arrived. He casually tossed his rain gear outside the door and joined our sushi feast. While chewing on his favorite salmon sushi, he enthusiastically discussed the origins of sushi history with us. Chris and I listened to him with little interest. In the end, all the food was consumed. Ostrom, when serious, had an insatiable appetite. Despite being affluent, he believed wasting food was shameful, so he single-handedly finished the leftovers. It seemed Ostrom had a very strict upbringing. Kitty, knock it off! Don't you do that to that couch, silly girl. All right. After the meal, everyone relaxed and chatted. Just when I thought we would chat until bedtime, Ostrom spoke up and addressed us. Sorry to disturb your rest. I'll borrow Chris for a moment. Chris looked surprised, but obediently followed Ostrom away. After all, it's hard to say no to a host after a meal of fine sushi. Amor squinted at Ostrom. He specifically singled out Chris for borrowing. Definitely not with pure motives. I mean, I'm definitely smarter and more capable than Chris. I recalled Amor's various work experiences and reluctantly agreed with him. Looks like your faithful dog is being poached. Should I hire a new one? Amor naughtily nudged my neck with his muzzle, and I backhanded him by grabbing his pointy mouth and circling it hard enough to keep his mouth open. He's not my dog, understand? He couldn't speak, so he just nodded obediently. I saw him stop his mischief and gave him a pat on the head as a reward for being a good boy. Amor squinted his eyes in enjoyment. Don't worry about it. Leave it to me. I'll figure it out. I turned my face away without comment. Though the bond between the three of us should be strong, I always felt there was a barrier between Amor and Chris. I wasn't sure to what extent Amor was willing to get involved. After all, the situation was strictly Chris's doing. Amor seemed to read my thoughts and smiled slightly. I would do anything for you. Even if that's not what I wanted. I read Amor's silent lip movements. He probably thought I couldn't understand the fox's lip language, but he didn't realize that our sometimes synced resonance betrayed him. Various emotions stuck in my throat, leaving me speechless, only able to stare blankly at the fire. The Outlands aren't as cheerful and peaceful as they seem on the surface. There's something brewing beneath the surface, and Ostrom is definitely planning something. Just as Amor said, Ostrom's use of Chris isn't a coincidence. Chris is just a newcomer to the Brotherhood. Without a position or achievements, nothing Ostrom could use. I have too little information to even prepare for the future. One second now. Perhaps I should build a good relationship with Lucas. He's also an outsider demon and can better understand our plight. When I came to, only embers remained in the honeyed hall fireplace. Amor was dozing again against me as I glanced up at the clock on the wall. The night was deep, yet Amor was still waiting for me. The promise he made to always accompany me was something I dared not take seriously. I could vaguely guess that Amor might have voluntarily been exiled by humans for my sake. He's intelligent and sharp, having hidden in human society for over 20 years with the protection of a large family. It's unlikely he'd suddenly be caught by demon counselors. And when we headed to the Outlands, he had enough time to pack and mail his belongings, opting to take only essential luggage with us on the long journey, unlike Chris or myself, who hurriedly prepared. Perhaps on the afternoon I was exposed, he immediately surrendered to the demon counselors to accompany me into exile. Yet even so, because of Chris's stubbornness, the three of us got stuck in the Wild Hunt Brotherhood, and Amor had no regrets about it. He's a proud individual, willing to silently endure Ostrom's manipulation for my sake. I chuckled bitterly. Debts of gratitude accumulate interest. The fox's sleeping posture was terrible. I gazed at Arthur's sleeping face for a while before waking him up. Then we picked up the bucket by the fireplace and thoroughly extinguished the fire, preparing to retire to our guest room. I was expecting Chris to help out in Ostrom's office, but the second floor was dark and unlit. Instead, there were lights and sounds coming from the basement. I went down the stairs and found the two men in the basement training room. Chris was sitting exhausted on the floor, and Ostrom was frowning as if he was thinking about something. What are you guys doing? Oh, just doing a bit of warming up. We've got a bit of a tight schedule, but it's better to take the day off and get on with it tomorrow. Ostrom reached for Chris and helped him to his feet. Faced with these challenges, Nud still manages with ease. You need to quickly adapt and catch up with progress. If you're Nud's son, there must be no problem. Chris nods awkwardly. For some reason, although Ostrom's words were meant to be encouraging, I seemed to hear a different meaning, which I didn't like at all. On the way back to the room, Chris remains tight-lipped about what they're training for, only saying they're tired, quickly washing up and going to bed. I turn to look at him more. The fox raises one eyebrow, giving a don't ask me and I have no idea look, then heads back to the room to sleep. I was suddenly alone in the empty hallway, and as I stared at the pale moonlight falling from the distant window, an unknown uneasiness churned in the pit of my stomach. I went to my room to sleep, and though my thoughts were racing, within a moment I was in a dark and dreamless sleep. One second, y'all. It is water time. Righty, y'all, and we are back. Okay. In the morning, the sun is dawning later than usual, and yesterday's rain has not yet stopped. The cool humidity soaks the room, adding a sense of alienation to the unfamiliar surroundings. Yesterday, I spent the night in the guest room of a fraternity house, which was a refreshing change from traveling off campus, but I didn't sleep well. The chill that shouldn't be there in the summer woke me up cold. Because most of the fraternity's magical creatures have fur, the quilts Darwin assigned me were too light and airy to keep me in bed. I stepped out of my room and saw that the fraternity's house was empty. Probably because of the rain, no one came to morning practice. I seemed to be the only one left in the fraternity's house, and Chris and Amor were not in their rooms. But as I strolled down the stairs, I noticed that the basement lights were on, and Ostrom's voice was faintly heard. I'll behave over there. So I curiously walked down the basement stairs and saw Ostrom, instructing Chris in some sort of martial arts maneuver. Your concepts are too much like humans. We demons have better physical abilities than humans, and sticking to human fighting techniques doesn't bring out a demon's strengths. Speaking, Ostrom demonstrates an unprecedented combat technique, seeming seamlessly transitioning between three attack stances, and feigns a bite towards the air. I took a moment to think about his attack, and then I came to the realization that he was unbalancing his enemy's center of gravity, causing him to fall back on his back, then locking the joints and biting the throat. It's a fighting technique used against humans. Because Ostrom was so kind, it made me forget that he was a demon with great killing power. I couldn't help but touch my neck in fear. Of course, hunting spiny birds isn't like fighting humans or demons. Oh, goodness. Oh, just barely caught that one. Where the attacks don't have to be damaging, but instead require hand-eye coordination and dynamic vision. But you should be able to perform this level of physical action. Do you know the zone? Do you know the way? You mean the state where certain athletes can feel the flow of time slowing down when they are highly concentrated? That's right. Demons can master zone easier than humans. We have been able to systematically learn how to use it. It's a shortcut to increase the success rate of hunting. With this physical reaction, you should have rich experience in fighting, right? Ostrom lightly kicked Chris in the side of the stomach. No. Instead of the experience of fighting, how about the experience of being beaten? Don't talk nonsense. Chris throws a jab that Ostrom easily dodges. Ostrom shakes his head. Just barely on the verge of passing. What Nud can do, I can do too. You must catch at least one spiny bird on the first hunt. It's the only way people will want to believe you're Nud's son. You won't be able to do that with Hess. You'll have to team up with Amor. The boy has enough talent to aid in your hunting success. If I'm not paired with Hess, then my hunt is meaningless. Think it through. You only get this chance. The only time. My mind's made up. Ostrom shook his head. Hess has become a soft spot for you. I can understand you wanting to keep him close, but it's not safe for him either. I will take care of him. Don't be greedy. Only the winner takes it all, and you're not a winner. You're nothing now. Damn. Ostrom Warden charged at me with his claws out, and I instinctively tried to run away, but I couldn't avoid it at all. Chris yanked on Ostrom's tail, but he missed and knocked over a nearby dumbbell rack. Ostrom grabbed me and gracefully picked me up and spun me around. As he did so, he stretched out his foot to trip Chris, who had run out of control, and then gently lowered me to the floor. My dear boy, eavesdropping is a bad habit. Chris pounded the floor so furiously and hard that the dumbbell next to him jumped. He failed, and even though he just said he was going to take care of me, he was actually completely incapable of stopping Ostrom's attack. I shoved Ostrom's wolf face as hard as I could to get him to let me go. Randomly grabbing a junior and tossing them around isn't a good habit. What are you guys up to? Training? Why didn't you come find me? Oh yeah, right, that was Hess talking. Okay. This is my class, Hess. You can conserve your energy for now. What exactly is the first hunt? It's... The first hunt is your first hunt. Fraternity hunts are already a favorite topic of conversation in social circles, but the quarterly grand hunt and members' first hunts are even more topical events. After all, a heroic debut is a performance anyone would want to see. Chris glared at Ostrom in a disgruntled and mournful way, as if complaining that this wasn't what they agreed upon. Oh, so you're preparing for the first hunt. So when's your first hunt? On... There's still some time. Chris quickly cut Ostrom off and gave the wolf a hard stare. It surprised me a little bit. Chris always acted polite, but suddenly he was very rude to Ostrom. What surprised me even more was that Ostrom didn't get angry. He just smiled and closed his mouth. He's quite the nobleman. If this had happened 200 years ago, Chris would have been thrown in the glove and asked for a duel to the death. Would have been thrown a glove and asked for a duel to the death, and would have been killed as a matter of course. I caught a hint of an unusual scent. I stared at Ostrom, the big wolf innocently shrugging, and when I stare at Chris, his ears and tail droop, as if he's done something wrong. Hess, will you listen to me? Trust me, and let me handle this. Come on. How can I say I don't trust you? Will you promise not to do anything dangerous? Chris nodded his head vigorously. Well, I'll take a tentative note of it. Not because I'm relieved, but because I trust you. Chris nodded harder. Not at all reassuring. I can sense a hint of weakness in Chris through the resonance. Forget that for now, and you do realize you have class this morning, right? I was slightly stunned, as if there was such a thing. So much has happened lately that my memory of the schedule is rather blurry. It's a common subject, general history of magical creatures. We'll be in class together, and we'll have to leave around 8:30 or so. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and pause it right there. Thank you all so much for watching. I love you all, and I shall see you all in the next video. Bye-bye!